What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so before I get into this video, shout out to the brother AB for the donation to the channel via the Cash App. And he asked me, do I think that James Harden entering the top 10 all-time scoring list is cheapened a bit? And I want to first start off by saying that I tend to follow the all-time pro basketball scoring list. I include the ABA. So because I include the ABA, that pushes up a couple of guys. Like that pushes up uh, Julius Erving, and that pushes up a little bit Moses Malone. So because of that, to me, James Harden is 12th all-time in pro basketball scoring. In the NBA, he's 10th, but in pro basketball, he's 12th. So to me, he's 12th. But for the sake of argument, if you take away the ABA, he recently passed Carmelo Anthony for 10th all-time in NBA scoring, trailing only LeBron James, Kareem, of course, Karl Malone, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, I think Dirk Nowitzki, let's see, Wilt Chamberlain, Kevin Durant, and ninth would be Shaquille O'Neal, I believe. So James Harden is steadily moving up that list, right? Do I think that James Harden being that high is cheapened a bit? Yes, because I don't think that he's that great a basketball player. I think he's a Hall of Famer, but I think that this entire era of basketball, like offensively, is super inflated. When you talk about all the rule changes that have gone on, there have been countless rule changes and augmentations made almost annually, or at least every so few years. And these changes have all been done to help the offensive player. I mean, I can't think of the last time there's been any rule implemented that has helped the defensive player. I mean, can you think of any? I think maybe you have to go back to has there ever been any rules that's been implemented to help defenders? No, not really. No. So when you look at a guy like James Harden with over 28,000 points, right? And you look at a guy like DeMar DeRozan, who, quite honestly, I don't see as a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he has 25,000 points. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's going to finish possibly right around where Jerry West is. Does anybody see him as equivalency of a Jerry West? Then you're going to have other players in this era who are going to be probably well over 20,000 points, but are not what you would call first ballot Hall of Famers. And it's an indictment on this era. It really is. These guys take so many threes because of the spacing, because of the fact that you can't be physical defensively. These guys are able to get into their offensive moves with relative ease. They're able to, get into their spots and shoot with relative comfort and really with no hindrance whatsoever. Whereas in the past, there was a lot more defensive presence around. So, like, what I'm trying to say is that in the past, players had to work harder for their shots. They didn't have as many clean looks. So, if you shot 37% from three in the 90s, that was great. That was excellent. Today, that's average. It's average. You have so many guys averaging 30 points a game now. You got probably 20 players averaging 24 points or more. At least it seems like it. It's a totally different era. And you contrast that to an era, say, the 90s, late 90s into the mid 2000s, when teams was only averaging 91, 92, 93 points a night. Players were just starting to implement the three-point shot into their games generally. Even those who shot at a great clip from three, they only took about 3 or 4, maybe 5 a game. Today, these guys are taking, 9, 10, 11 threes, 12 threes a night. And I just can't help but think that if these guys were playing 20 years ago, they would be put up the same numbers. Think about it, man. Like, when we were kids, when a guy reached 20,000 points, it really, truly was a milestone. And usually, 20,000 points, for the most part, meant that you were a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's why I was such a big, it was kind of controversial that Tom Chambers didn't get into the Hall of Fame. Matter of fact, him coming back out of retirement, one of the main reasons he did it was because he wanted to eclipse the 20,000 point mark. Then, it got moved up to 25,000. Fine. But now, man, you're going to have guys like, I wouldn't be surprised if you have guys like C.J. McCollum get to 25,000 points. Let me see something right quick. Give me 1 second, y'all. I'm not knocking C.J. McCollum. Now, I might be a little off here, but you know what I'm saying? He'll come across to you as a Hall of Famer. He comes across to you. He comes across to me as like a Walt Williams type player. But Walt Williams was averaging 17, 18, 19 points a night, and his absolute peak. Let's see. C.J. McCollum has. Okay, he's not going to get there. I'm way off with him. He's had a lot of injury issues too. So I'm way off with him. He's at 16,000. But you get the point I'm trying to make, though, man. Like, let me see something. Give me a second here. Paul George. Paul George more than likely is going to reach 20,000 points. Okay? Brook Lopez has an outside chance of getting 20,000 points. He might fall short. Nikola Vucevic, right? How old is he? 35. Nikola Vucevic might get to 20,000 career points. Devin Booker might get at the pace he's going, he's 29. Devin Booker might reach 30,000 points. That's the point I'm trying to make here, right? But at the same time, when the last time you seen anybody playing who's amongst the all-time leaders in rebounding or block shots? Anybody threatening to reach 3,000 blocks? Anybody threatening Akeem Olajuwon's official record? Or get up there with Mutombo for 3,000 blocks with Kareem? No. No, and that's why I don't like the game, because it's slanted so much to the offense. Now, there's some great players, but I'm always trying to, at the same time, emphasize that the rules are helping these guys put up huge numbers. And I keep it 100. At the same time, the way the game was played in the 1960s, even though they did play defense, because of the pace, it was pushing their offensive numbers to unbelievable heights. Their pace in the 60s was unbelievable. If you sit down and watch a game from the 60s, you'd be amazed at the condition of these players, bro. Like in the 60s, those guys were fucking racehorses, bro. Up and down the court, up and down the court. They'd take the first available shot, rebound, push it. It was just fast break all day, all day, all day. You know, the only time the game really slowed down is oftentimes when the ball would go into Will Chamberlain, and it would slow down a little bit. But even then, if you watch Wilt with the Warriors, he wasn't in the post like that. He wasn't like, it wasn't like he was getting the ball back down the post and dunk. You couldn't do that. If you lean your arm, if you lean your shoulder into the defensive player, you will almost automatically call for an offensive foul back then. As a matter of fact, players were able to hand check with both hands back then. They was able to double hand check. I don't think they got rid of that until the late 60s. And they did that to open up the game a little bit more. That's why if you look at some of the games from the 1960s, in the early 1960s, late 50s, when you look at some of the footage, they almost never dunked because they weren't able to get that type of space. It wasn't until the NBA started looking at the ABA and how exciting that was, and they knew that their game was conservative by nature. That's when they started loosening up the rules as far as palming the basketball. That's when they started loosening up the rules when it came to players being able to guard guys. That's when they started saying, okay, we only can use one hand. And that's how guys were starting to spin around and dunk, and they was able to get free. That's when you start seeing Wilt and all those guys dunk more often. But anyway, just want to put that out there, man. But the pace was so fast, so the offenses were inflated. Same thing with the rebounding. It was inflated. Still amazing, but it was inflated. So I keep energy, the same energy for today's league. Like all the 3-point shots and the pace compared to 20 years ago, and the lack of defensive physicality as far as defense is concerned. You more or less got to use your legs. So because of that, players get tired quicker on defense. Plus, there's no big man down low, so these guys get pretty much unencumbered, forays to the basket. So that's all I got to say about it. What you guys think?